Today I want to talk about the deck of weird things, which you can get with or without the slipcover. And it was deliberately overpriced because the company, Lamentations of Flame Princess, was in danger. So they made no bones about the fact that they're going to overprice both this and the slipcover at €100 a pop. But this is based on a magic item from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons called the Deck of Many Things. It was a 13 or 22 cards, and you could use playing cards. It gives you indication about which playing cards you use, and each one of them had, the players would draw from these. They had to decide how many they're going to draw in advance, and they would draw some, and things would happen. And, and they had names that were reminiscent of tarot cards, like the sun, the moon, the star, the night, ruin. Now, some of these are the Fool. Some of these are actual tarot cards, others are not. So it's very reminiscent of tarot cards. I used to use tarot cards when I do this, but James Rogge also used the Deck of Many Things in his D&D days. And so he wanted to make a Lamentations version of it, and he wanted to make it bigger to include the whole full deck of poker cards. And so that's what he did. He made this so that a group, you have to have at least 3 characters willing to draw from it. They can draw up to 3 cards to begin with. They have to decide in advance how many cards you're going to draw. They have to agree on everybody's going to both pull the same number of cards. And 2d10 of the cards are not available because somebody who got to the deck before you already drew those. And so this is basically to allow some customization, but make it random. Because people are playing new school games, like the rule customization that you can supposedly get with these new school games. The problem is that some skills, some feats are more optimal than others. And for that reason, people pick the same ones. And so you ended up with a more complex version of everybody running the same character. While in the old school games, there was a lot more customization, but it wasn't built into the rules. It was up to the imagination of the players. So, there's a page for each card in a deck of cards. And so you draw a card from the deck that already has 2d10 taken out of it, and you also draw from another deck just to get a suit. So there's 4 possible things your card can mean depending on what the suit of the other deck is. This could also be done with a D4 easily. Now, this works really good at the table, but it's not quite as good when you're playing online. I couldn't figure out a way to randomly generate a result while also excluding possible results. I'm not a good enough computer program to write on the fly a computer program that would allow you to simulate this. So I've done this once. The players were only willing to try one thing. 2 people got good stuff. 1 person got a bad thing. There are a few pictures of cards in here, but there's not one for each and every card. I think this would have been cool if they'd made their own deck, but I chose not to. But there's a lot of things. Let's see if I can find pictures. So I'm going to show pictures off. Here's one. Yeah, so it's got the same NPCs that usually show up in Lamentations art. Now this picture is next to the king of spades, not the ace. That's odd. Nice even places for the red joker. Let's see, any more? Oh, here's another one. And here's an index. So there's places for the black joker and the red joker. So this is pretty cool, and I used it the first time my players showed up after I got this book. I have not read the whole thing. I'm going to hold off on reading it, only using it as the cards are pulled. So the way I did it is I got a deck of cards and pulled out, I rolled 2d10, pulled out that many, and set those aside. And then I shuffled the deck several times, let the players draw. I didn't know what they were going to draw before they did, and then looked up what they had. But I had to do the draw, so luckily I had players who trust me for that. And the cards I drew I put into the discard pile, so those will never be seen again until we've gone through the whole deck. One of the players missed that session, so when he returns, we will have a different group of players, so they can do it again if they like. And when players get killed and there's a new one, there'll be a new group of players, so they can do it again. But I think it's a real shame that he chose to do this with an ordinary deck instead of a tarot deck. He could have made his own tarot deck for this, and if he advertised it right, he could have sold it to people who don't buy Lamentations of the Flame Princess games. The tarot decks have some great archetypal pictures, things like the Magician. Let's find some good ones. The Lovers, the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune, Death, the Hanged Man, the Devil, the Tower burning or struck by lightning, depending on your deck, the Star, the Moon, Sun, the Last Judgment, the World or the Universe. And some decks have individual pictures for the individual suits. So it's a real shame that he didn't make a tarot deck to accompany this book. Or they just didn't even just base it on a tarot deck, because lots of people have tarot decks. I know some of my players don't have even one. But lots of people do, and they're really colorful at the table. This make a much bigger impression than picking cards from an ordinary deck of poker cards. You know, only the cards with people on them and the Ace of Spades and the Jokers have real impact. But there are some fancy poker decks out there you can get to use for this. Also, it doesn't work that good online. If you play online games like I do, then it's not as easy to draw the cards. You have to have players like I do who trust me to play fair with which card they drew. Is it really random? I've tried to be fair about it, but anyway, that's my little talk on the deck of weird things.